Alright, so we're back in the world of No Rest for the Wicked, and today guys, we're going to be going over some really cool information. If you didn't know, yesterday, the team, Thomas, and a few members of the team went over a ton of questions that a lot of players asked, addressed a lot of questions, especially related to the next patch, as well as the 1.0 launch, and there was just a ton of information that went into that dev livestream. I wanted to take the time today to kind of give you guys a TLDR breakdown since it was like over 2 hours, and I know not everyone has 2 hours to really go over and watch a live stream. But yeah, we're gonna go over everything I made a note of, things that are mostly important. We'll have it linked down in the description for maybe some of the smaller stuff that I may have missed, but for the most part, going over the most important stuff. Before we dive in though, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We do cover all things action RPGs here on the channel. If you want to stay up to date on all things action RPGs, you're in the right place. We're still trying to reach that hefty goal of 100,000 subs, so show your support while keeping yourself informed, and let's dive right into the news. Alright, so first things first, let's talk about the most important thing to clarify early on, because there was something that kind of got misconstrued, and I'm worried it's going to continue to be misconstrued. There's going to be a patch 1 that's going to come in March, and then there's going to be the 1.0 or the official launch that's going to come sometime later in the future, which they should give us the information on sometime in March. At least that's what the team said. This is different from the 1.0 official launch of the game. I want to make sure that is clarified, because I saw a lot of people in the chat was like celebrating, they thought it was coming this March. No, they're just a little bit confusing on the name scheming, but we're going to get patch 1 this month, as well as information for the 1.0 patch later this month, so we can kind of see when we're going to actually play the game. Now, the team started off talking about the class system. For those of you who are not familiar with what this is, basically, No Rest for the Wicked is swapping from a attribute system to a full-fledged class system, and this is going to be really big, because it's going to change from something like just kind of freely doing your own build, which you're still going to be able to do, but a little bit more, how do I say this, streamlined for players, so they can have a better understanding of how to build a character, and that's for a couple of reasons. As I said, the attribute system, the old one, is going to be going away. The reason why they didn't really want to continue to go with this system is simply because, I don't know if you guys experience this, because I have, where you start off the game, you invest into attributes, or in a lot of cases not invest into attributes, because you don't know exactly what the value is. There's a long time before you can go and respec, and then you as a player, you invest a ton of time, scale decks, you get weapons that don't have deck scaling, and it just becomes a trog. You end up investing a ton of time into the character, it doesn't feel good, and it just doesn't feel like it flows very well from what the team says. And I can kind of agree, as someone who's leveled up at least like 20 characters at this point. That feels horrible, because you hoard points and it's hard to respec. And yeah, it just ruins a lot of players' start. They're always confused. And so they're going to be moving away from the system. And they said it's going to be close to that of something like Final Fantasy Tactics when it comes to the classes, where they're going to introduce clear guidelines on how you build your character. How your character is going to be defined is through skill points, which are going to be introduced, and these skill points are going to essentially give you passive skills based on whatever you choose. And even more so, they're going to be replacing the utility runes that are currently in the game, and they're going to be giving you serum runes. And this is going to give you the ability to allocate 8 runes, so that's significantly more than our current utility, which is 4. And these are going to be specific to classes. Now, obviously, I haven't interacted with this mechanic, but from the way it seems, in the way they explained it, is going to be like, you go into your tree, you're going to see, let's say, for example, Knight, because I know they mentioned something like a Knight class, and the Knight is going to have a set amount of passive that's within his tree, or maybe a skill tree. Again, I haven't seen it. And then you'll be able to allocate certain passives that's more suited towards a Knight, as well as certain serum runes that's going to be serum runes that are going to be more situated towards said Knight. In addition to this, the team said that the stat screen is going to be completely reworked. One thing that I have complained about since beginning of this game, like 2 or 3 years ago, whenever the hell that was, is that there's no more, there wasn't enough actual information on the stats. Don't know what they do. Like, you kind of have a good idea of it, but it's not definitive, right? And so they're going to be providing us with a lot more details into what happens with certain stats that you allocate. So if you invest in something like health, you can see what things do, see what resistances offer, see how much armor mitigates certain amount of damage, like actual damage values and stats that's going to be like significantly more detailed. This is also in addition to runes as well. They're going to give you a much clearer understanding of what they do the damage numbers, the type of damage. It's actually going to have archetype stats values that are shown on the rune, so you can have significantly more information, detailed damage numbers, and just generally important details that you need to know about how the skill works. I'm imagining like stun duration, things like that is also going to be showed. So for those who really like the analytical side of things, like build makers like myself, you'll have significantly more information on how things actually work, which is a massive bonus in my opinion. That is a big one. Now, as the interview continued, the team did talk a little bit about inspirations and kind of the thoughts behind the rune system specifically, and it was closer to, at least what they said, was inspired by fighting games. The philosophy is for players to have one each of type of rune that functions similar to that of a fighting game system. For example, you have a block break that helps you take away people's block, a gap closer so you can get in close, a combo rune, and other similar tools that come with fighting games. Obviously, it's not going to be as in depth as like, doing circle, back, up, down, left, right, all those different kind of fighting moves that come with those more in-depth fighting games. But the concept is simple. They want to make sure that you have tools and actual tools that are available for fighting situations. And this is obviously a massive one, especially having something like block breaking and gap closing, especially when we take into consideration they are gearing up for PvP, which we're going to talk about in just a second. But they are going with a more fighting game philosophy where players can actively have multiple ways to deal with multiple enemies. Now, kind of closing out this section, they did talk about a lot of players' thoughts on this, as they said a lot of players were a bit concerned that the game will be changing much more. And the team seemed to reassure us that while the game is definitely going to be changing in a way, it's going to be changing in a positive way. The game is not going to become a completely different game. Like, the identity of the game is still going to be itself. It's just the idea is to make the systems clearer. It's going to make it better. You're going to have way more depth of character building. And of course, it'll be easier for a lot of more, like, I guess, newer players to identify a class system and give you more depth, rather than just having this free system where attributes are confusing and skills don't make a lot of sense. So expect a different experience, but not in a bad way. So that's a really positive thing to hear. Now, as I said in the intro, there is going to be patch 1, and this is different from patch 1.0, which is the official launch. I want to reiterate that. But we're going to be talking a little bit about some things that you should expect in patch 1 as well as patch 1.0, and I'll really try to make a distinction of that so that you understand it. But the patch 1 should be released in March, and we should have an announcement of when to expect the 1.0 patch sometime in March. So that's what the team said. Things could change, of course, but that's what we should expect. Now, patch 1 is going to be changing the comfort system / the housing system. So the way this works is the comfort system will be a grade, and the grade is going to be depending on what's inside your house, how things are placed, and the quality and quantity of furniture within your home. There is going to be up to 6 comfort grades, and if you sleep in your house, you will receive multiple buffs. We already kind of have that available, but it's kind of a static buff. You're going to get better and better buffs depending on what you put in the home. And for the team, at least what they said, is they really want to make sure that there's actual value in, investing into your home. And there's going to probably be a variety of different, like, I guess, housing builds. I guess we'll probably make a housing build or something where you can do a combination of different furniture and things like that and setups, because it did say what you put in and how you put it in your home can dictate the comfort level. So there's going to be some experimentation there. Now, generally speaking, there is going to be some balance passes coming for the game. That's going to be range from patch 1 all the way up to the 1.0 patch. I believe the enhancement system, don't quote me on this, but I believe the enhancement system was going to be changing a bit. Specifically, I'm assuming the runes, at least that's what they seemed like they were referring to. One thing they were really going after was converting defense into durability. And this is not something that they really want, because there's builds that make you literally immortal. So obviously that's going to be changing. This is just purely speculation on my part. I'm going to assume all the things that give you tons of damage on low life, when you have shield and all this stuff on the enhancements, I'm assuming those are going to be reworked or changed in a way. Maybe their values are reduced pretty heavily. I don't know. But with the way the game is currently going, the stats on those are ridiculous, and it just feels kind of unfair, and that's going to be changing, especially the invulnerability stuff. So that's going to be something to keep in mind. And when it comes to damage reduction, anything damage reduction based, there are going to be diminishing returns on this. So keep in mind, for those of you who are using a lot of like defense things that really make you invulnerable, expect your builds to change in a big way soon. Now, other things they talked about was the Ranger. Specifically, they're looking at the defense of Ranger, giving them a different form of defense. Because, you know, right now, currently, defense feels a little bit weird in general, and Rangers don't really have a reliable source of defense. On the flip side, though, they are looking to remove cheesy strategies that are currently involved with the Ranger. One balance thing they said that they will be doing for Ranger is specifically giving damage drop off for ranged weapons. So if you're actively shooting from across the screen, you should actively see a damage drop off the further they are, which in my opinion does make the game way more balanced, because right now range is so overly dominant. And yeah, it's kind of no point to play melee in my opinion, unless you're just blowing everything up. They also did say they will be touching on focus again, because focus is not in a good place. So expect to see some nerfs there. Now, one side thing they talked about briefly, and that was the plague system as well as the in-game systems. And some things that were kind of important, at least to me, was something I talked about years ago. And that is the plague system and the in-game system not being in its true form. Currently, the reason for a lot of the balance issues and why the character player feels so much more powerful rather, is due to the lack of the true in-game system. Currently, from what they said, we have tiers basically 1 through 3. We're missing tiers 4 through 6 when it comes to all the content, and that's why the player power feels higher. Personally, to me, I've always said this, I don't think the player power is too high. I just think the enemies are just too weak, because right now we just missed the in-game, and this is something I said like 2 years ago, because clearly they didn't really fully implement the in-game. And so they kind of confirmed this. I'm not sure if they've confirmed this multiple times since I've been away from No Rest for the Wicked, but kind of felt like that was the case since like 2 years ago. And so when the 1.0 launch comes, the actual launch, we should expect to see that, where the player power is maybe a bit more appropriate. Like your current characters will probably get completely bodied by tier 6 stuff. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Now, moving on to more farming related things. And when I say farming, I mean actual literal farming. The team plans to introduce farming into the game. The idea behind this, and keep in mind, this is supposed to be for the 1.0, the actual like launch of the game. The idea behind this is for players to find seeds and different things out in the open world that will provide certain buffs when planted. From what I can recall, they said something to the effect that seeds will sometimes have certain modifiers on them to make them do some different things. And once you plant them and grow them, they can be eaten for buffs, used for, I'm assuming, recipes as well. And then of course you can sell your crops for money, which is going to introduce a full-fledged farming system. Now, in addition to this, which is the most exciting part in my opinion when it comes to farming, is that it's going to have farmhouses and large farming plots. Now, this is awesome because certain homes, like the farming homes that will be placed alongside the map, will actually have dedicated farming plots. So let's say you have a massive community and someone in your community, your friend or girlfriend, wife, or just anyone, I don't know, who cares, whoever likes farming, really wants to play the game from a farming perspective, they can go take the farming homes and they can actually be, I don't know, they can be the chef of your world, or they can be the farmer chef, that kind of thing, where they do handle all your meals and things of the world. That would be sick. Maybe if there was like a public fridge inside the cooking place or something, would be kind of sick. But anyway, they can handle all your farming stuff. You can have dedicated farming plots, which is insane to me. I think that's a really good system. And they said that they want to include, I don't know if this is going to happen, but they want to include quests where you need to go to a certain location to get certain seeds. And this could be more powerful or something like that. So if you have a player who's not necessarily combat adept, you can have someone who's really good at combat kind of escort them and bring them back so they can actually, do the farming stuff, which would be really cool. Now, they did briefly touch on some combat modes that we should see in the future. So first off, the Horde Mode. I'm sure you guys have heard of this a couple of times, but basically you're going to go into an arena. You should expect to see bosses and elite spawns. You'll see a boon system, probably something similar to that of the current Crucible, maybe a little bit different, who knows. And you'll be able to fight horde and horde of enemies. That's going to be really cool. I think that's a great little game mode to have. Could be a great little looting location for farming certain loot. It would be nice if you can kind of, I would love to see gear tied to specific enemy types, and then you kind of call the enemies you want to face off against if you want to farm a certain type of gear. That would be awesome in my opinion, so that the Horde mode people can have a way to progress their character as well. But yeah, that's kind of one thing they said. You should expect Horde mode, which is kind of cool. In the patch 1, the one coming soon, there should be a duel mode, and they said that expect that balance will be very rough. So don't expect duel mode to be great. You'll be able to actively go into mission anywhere in the world, go up to your friend, ask them to duel, and you can duel. Now, in addition to that, one thing they are looking at is a wager system as well as arenas. The idea is you can say, hey, I can beat you in a duel. I'll pay this kind of money, this X kind of money. You guys fight out. Whoever wins the wager, that kind of thing, which is kind of cool. And while they said they haven't done it or they've talked about it, they said they were looking into possible matchmaking. Now that's probably far off, not in the patch 1, closer to like maybe the 1.0 if they add it. But matchmaking for arenas is something they are looking at or have looked at in the past. So just keep that in the back of your mind. And most importantly, the big thing is PvP is going to be templated, meaning there's going to be certain loadouts. Personally, for me, I think the balance is in a very wacky state. I said this like 2 years ago, funny enough. I think I don't want to flame them for this, by the way. I know they're trying different things. So while that is kind of a flame, I will say keep trying until you get it right. But balance is in a wacky state right now still. So hopefully they can get on top of that, especially when it comes to certain weapon balance and things like that. But yeah, they need to fix balance before we really start digging into PvP. But yeah, expect some PvP stuff in the next patch coming in a couple of days or a couple of weeks. Now, some other balance changes or changes you should expect. Ember drop rate should be increased soon. I'm not exactly sure when this one is coming, but they really should be increasing them, if I'm being honest. I'm glad to see that they're doing. I think this was part of the patch 1, as well as fixed misleading mechanics such as lifesteal on certain things. I don't know if they meant the wording on that or just how it functionally plays compared to what it actually says, but should expect to see some fixes there. One thing I didn't submit in the bug report is increase to healing, and I hope they address this, but increase to healing on plagued items based on your durability doesn't actually work. It actually lowers your healing, but on the rare versions it actually works. I don't know if any of the devs watched this or any players have experienced this, but that's a bug too that needs to be fixed. Hopefully they fix that in the next update or the patch 1. A few more rapid fire things we should expect. There will be a playtest session for players who are testing the class system. They want to intensely test the class system before sending it live. Patch 1 will run for a while, so expect the next patch running for a good amount of time, as well as this patch for the class system in the playtest. And when the 1.0 come out, this is essentially going to be a relaunch of the game. This isn't just basically what they're saying is they really want the game to be what early access is for, right? You have early access, it really tests out things and really get the game in a good place, and then when the 1.0 come, it feels like a relaunch of the game because there is a ton of stuff to the game. It feels completely different, and I think that's a really great philosophy. I really do love the team for that. A few other things, they're expecting to increase communication improvements like Realm Diary updates, so things that you've done while you were offline your friends could see. Chat improvements, probably emote improvements from what it seemed like, so players can communicate better. Many quality of life improvements and bug fixes. A buyback feature in 1.0. They say they had a little bit of a problem with this as it's a little bit more complicated. And the thing being able to look into a menu simultaneously is another thing they need to work on because it's not necessarily the best right now. But it's going to take a little bit of time to fix. The buyback feature should come in the 1.0 launch, not in the patch 1. So keep that in mind. And then the last thing that at least was notable to me was that the Danos projects, the things we do where we get all the different projects, is still not in this full complete state. So we should expect more Danos projects for things like salvaging. I think they mentioned something like that where you will actively be able to salvage gear and maybe things that float around in that area. So way more projects and things. Because there's a lot of gear I just sell. I would love to break it down to get materials, and that would extremely help with making builds and making content flow a lot better. So that would be something awesome. Now, closing this one out, I do want to talk about something I feel is the most controversial, and that is how the 1.0 should expect when it comes to the seasonal system. Now, the team did say that the seasonal system is not going to be something they want to introduce to the game. They want to create a forever game, but they don't want to have a seasonal system. Their plan currently, as of now, is to make it so that the content, the game is so content rich that it doesn't need a seasonal system. Now, personally, if you know anything about me, especially when I've talked about No Rest for the Wicked, I don't think there's been a single thing I've been wrong about when it comes to No Rest for the Wicked. If we've talked about it in the past, it's been implemented. Like, go watch any of the videos I made 2 years ago about No Rest for the Wicked, whether it be the crafting system, which currently has everything I talked about, the in-game loop, the balance, the weapons. Not a single thing that I've talked about thus far has not been added to the game. I personally think this is a massive mistake to not have a seasonal system. I'm going to use this last section of the video to kind of just give my personal opinion, maybe a little bit more detailed than the rest of the stuff, because I do think this is important. I kind of want people to understand why I think this is a mistake. For me as a player, and for a lot of players who participate in action RPGs, one of the best parts of a game is coming back to something fresh and new. Now, the way I and a lot of players play is we will get to a point where we're so strong that there's nothing in the game that we can't kill. You can go down my list of characters right now and I can kill every single thing in the game. The problem with not having a seasonal system is, well, there's two things. First off, having a seasonal system exists exactly like having your own world, because there's always a legacy realm, which will be literally the same as just having your own world. There's no difference there. You're not losing anything. You're actually gaining. You're gaining the ability to farm resources again. You're gaining the ability to enjoy the story again. You're gaining the ability to interact with the world in a different way again. And that's something that gets missing when you don't have a seasonal system. So let's say in my current world right now, you introduce a new mechanic. Well, if you introduce a new mechanic to the game, I'm going to absolutely body it. I'm way too strong. Unless you're introducing something non-combat related, which I don't know how that's going to keep any player engaged. I don't think I would ever come back to No Rest for the Wicked if I completed all the content in the game and then you told me I'm going to add X system. Like, do I care? Probably not. Maybe you add one boss. Okay, I kill him in 5 seconds because I'm so strong. And the reason why seasonal systems are so good is because when you introduce a new mechanic, the world tends to change. The world is seen at a different lens. And most importantly, I actually have a goal to chase. I have to chase to fight something different or unique or new to the game, and I don't just instantly kill it. And that's something I think is a massive mistake when it comes to No Rest for the Wicked. I don't know how you make the game a forever game by just simply adding I just don't see simply adding a mechanic on top of an established world is going to do anything. I just don't see how that could work. Maybe the team will surprise me, but so far I haven't been wrong about anything for No Rest for the Wicked. And I think not having a seasonal system is a massive mistake. Now again, for those who say they want to continue to have a world, you will always have a world. Legacy doesn't make you not have a world. It gives you literally more, because you have the ability to redo the world and bring it back to your other world. So you're not losing anything. That's no different than taking your character now to a new world like you do anyway naturally, which makes no sense to me not to have a seasonal system. Anyway, I'm just gonna leave it there because I know I'm probably gonna get a lot of comments about it, but that's my spiel on the no seasonal system. I think it's a mistake. Either way, that is pretty much all the information you need to know about No Rest for the Wicked's live stream. Again, there are some smaller things I may have missed, but these are the most important things I thought that should be brought to your attention. Let me know down in the comments what you think about all these changes. Personally, I think 95% of this was pretty positive for me personally. So yeah, really hope they can get on top of balance and maybe talk a little bit about combat and buffing. That was something that was missing from this. I think maybe that's just how Thomas talks. He doesn't really necessarily talk about the everything in detail. Like you say, he'll change something, but not necessarily give detail on the buff side of things. I would like to hope, but hopefully we see that. Anyway, let me know down in the comments if you enjoyed the content. Make sure to drop a like as well as subscribe. And just like that, guys, I'll see you in the next No Rest for the Wicked video very soon.